Well, hello there, and in this presentation, we will learn about the three correct ways to pronounce the R in German. But before we go to learning about the three types, just a quick little introduction about myself and some disclaimers. Now, first of all, I'm not a native speaker. I learned German the way many of you have learned it, which was through high school and in college, and I loved the language so much that I even majored in German. I did also score a 5 on the AP German exam, and personally, I do prefer using the rolled R. Now, why am I doing this? Well, when I took German classes in the United States, I I realized that many language teachers tended not to emphasize a proper pronunciation of German. And for example, they might have run over the rules of pronunciation in about a week or so, but after that, they really didn't try to correct the students' pronunciation. And when students responded with very thick American accents or just blatantly wrong pronunciations, the teachers did not correct them. And what happens with that is when these language learner students decided to, say, visit Germany and they conversed with native speakers, their thick accents really outed them as foreigners. And when one is learning a language, it really is important to have a proper, correct pronunciation as well. And second reason is, yeah, many language learners are simply unaware that there are multiple correct ways of pronouncing the R. It's not just one method. And what happens is, for especially I know a lot of American students, they're taught that there's only one correct way to pronounce the German R, and it's the French R. And for a lot of students, they simply physically cannot make that sound. And what happens is they just revert to using the sound that they do know, which is the American rhotic R, which, if you pronounce that in German, it's wrong. It's just wrong. So the three types are the Uvular Fricative R, which is the French guttural R. There's the rolled R, and then the tapped R. So let's begin with the standard R. And this is what you would learn if you took a class in German. It is known in linguistic terms as a uvular fricative because it is made in the back of your throat with the uvula. It is the same one in French, but it's not as guttural in French. So some examples of that in modern German would be in the words Frau, Rose, richtig. So Frau, Rose, richtig. Now those are examples of when the R is voiced. Now, if an R is at the end of a word, it could be unvoiced. So for example, hier, Vater, Wasser. You realize that R kind of gets replaced by an A sound. So it's like it's a silent R. And in English, that's what the British English speakers sometimes do, is they have voiced R's and they have unvoiced R's. The second variant is the uvular roll, or the rolled R, mainly used in southern Germany, Switzerland especially, and Austria. It is also a part of the stage pronunciation of German, the Bühnenaussprache, which you will hear, for example, if you attend a German opera or if you watch a classical theatrical piece in German. The actors and the singers will generally roll their R because it's more lyrical. It's more easier to sing a rolled R than it is to sing that guttural French R. In English, we have this in the Scottish dialect. So, and this really was, even now, it's pretty rare for Scottish people to roll their R. Now it's been replaced by the tap. But in the past, Scottish English actually used a rolled R. So some example, I would say, father, or something similar to that. Now, keep in mind, this is a uvular trill. It's not the alveolar trill that you have in languages like Spanish or Italian. Now, unfortunately, I do not know how to pronounce the alveolar trill as they do in Spanish, but from what I know, it's the alveolar one is the type of roll, for example, in the Spanish word Carro. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a very different type of roll than the German uvular roll. If you want some examples of this, you can search on YouTube for Edith Piaf's song Non Rien de Rien, and in which she sings basically Non Rien de Rien. And there's a song, the Mackie Messer, sung by Ernst Busch. And if you search this on YouTube, it's from a black and white movie. And he sings, for example, if I can remember it, Und der Haifisch, der hat Zähne, und die trägt ins Gesicht. So you get the idea. It's a very strong rolled R. And so examples in the words I previously mentioned, the word for woman in German would be pronounced Frau, or rose would be pronounced Rose, or richtig, with the uvular rolled R. But it's not usually rolled in at the end of words, like Wasser, like I mentioned previously. But it could be rolled at the end of such words, for example, in a literary language, stage pronunciation. And you'll get an example of that when I recite the poem Der Erlkönig by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe in all three types of the German R. The third type is the alveolar roll, or the tapped R. Some people call this a roll. I call this a tap, because it's usually a single tap at the front of the mouth. It's with your tongue. And sort of exclusively this is in southern Germany and Austria especially. So it's pronounced and tapped at the front. Examples include Frau, Rose, richtig. And it's also usually tapped at the end of words that have an R. For example, Vater, Mutter, instead of Vater, Mutter. So they actually pronounce it. And a great example of this, if you want to watch a video, watch Roman Herzog's speeches on YouTube. He was the former Bundespräsident of Germany, and he was from Bavaria. And he has a very strong Bavarian accent. And when you watch his speeches, he uses this type of tapped R. I have a tip for American English speakers learning German. Please, 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 whatever you do, try your best not to pronounce the R as we do in American English. It's called the rhotic R. So, as an example, please try not to say Frau, or richtig, or Rose. You know, if you say that in Germany, you're speaking to a native speaker, they will immediately know that you're a foreigner, and usually one of two things will happen. Either, number one, they will just laugh at you because it is quite comical, or number two, more commonly, what happens is they would immediately switch over to English. And if you're learning the language, you don't want to speak in English. You want to practice your German. So it's good to have good, proper pronunciation. So a tip for you is try to choose one of these three types of R's when you speak German. Either the standard French type R, or the rolled R, or the tapped R. Whatever is easiest for you, and stick with it if you can. So I know a lot of, for example, American students who know Spanish. The rolled R would be easier for them because they already rolled R in Spanish. And or students who speak Russian, rolled R would be easier. And it's just unfortunate that in a lot of classes, the German teachers don't really mention the fact that there is a different way to pronounce the R in German. It doesn't have to be just in that French guttural R. And also, if you really speak German, for example, with a rolled R or a tapped R, and your grammar is really good, you will sound like a native speaker, or at least as if you're from southern Germany. So in the next video, I will recite the poem Der Erlkönig in the three types of R pronunciation: standard, rolled, and tapped. And you'll see which one you prefer the most and which one would you prefer to use. All right?